Hello, everyone. Tonight, I will be discussing to you about the stages of moral development by Lawrence Kohlberg. Okay, so before anything else, of course, you might be wondering why, and you might be asking to yourself, what are the important and how does this moral development stages are actually developed? So, way back from the origin, it was Lawrence Kohlberg who actually created or who actually authored about the stages of moral development. Wherein, because Lawrence Kohlberg is actually a follower of John Piaget, and John Piaget is also a psychologist who actually introduced about the moral reasoning of the child, no? Nya, atom lang nasabtan kas no nga the very nature of the human being is kanino as the human being actually started to develop physically, obviously everything will go in parallel also. Like for example, this understanding about what morality is all about, so it will also follow with the physical development of the human being. So laktod pagkastorya, gikan sa pagkabata sa usa ka tawo, it will started to develop, no, ang atong understanding about morality will go more broader and broader as we grow older. Okay, so I will be presenting to you about my uh, slides about these stages of moral development of Lawrence Kohlberg. So here, moral development. What is the moral development? So moral development is an aspect of a person's overall development that follows over the course of a lifetime. So, as I mentioned a while ago, when we speak about a development, it does not just stop to a specific age of the individual, but the development as it is actually being emphasized by this presentation is actually uh, nagkuhan siya, no, nag-suggest siya that a human being, the development of the human being is until the lifetime, no, sa usa ka tawo. Now, also moral development is growth, and like all growth, it takes place according to a predetermined sequence. So it follows a very chronological order. So just like kita, no, sa tuang stages of development, of course coming from a child until we grow older, which is we become teens and later become early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. So that's the process of the human being. And also, uh, di po nakabase ang kanang gitawag na to moral development, understanding about what is the rightness and the wrongness of an act. Now, let's take a visit about a few backgrounds of Lawrence Kohlberg. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. This theory is a stage. In other words, everyone goes through the stages sequentially without skipping any stage. So, in a chronological manner, this development, no, uh, follows an order. So assess moral reasoning by posing hypothetical moral dilemmas and examining the reasoning behind people's answers. So the moral dilemmas by which the human being, no, bisag unsa pa ang ato ang decisions, of course there are mga corresponding mga consequence that we might encounter along the way sa ato ang paghimo decisions. So diri explain diri no how an individual actually reason out, no, by means of their understanding and their views about what morality is all about. Now proposed Lawrence Kohlberg actually significantly proposed three distinct of moral reasoning. We have pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Now let me share to you a video. I hope this is something that is very helpful for you to understand better about what Lawrence Kohlberg's theory is all about. I
Lawrence
hope you
Kohlberg's
join.
theory claims that our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. The stages themselves are structured in 3 levels: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. To understand this better, imagine a conflict at school. There is a fight in the schoolyard. 2 ninth graders are beating up Tom. Those who watch the fight are at different stages of moral development. Let's see what they do and how they justify their behavior. At stage 1, we make moral judgments based on obedience and punishment. Finn's sense of good or bad is directly linked to whether he gets punished or not. Finn sees what is happening to his friend and wants to help, but he doesn't because he is afraid the teacher may punish him if he gets caught fighting. He asks himself, how to avoid punishment? At stage 2, we are motivated by self-interest. Mary decides to intervene and help Tom. She knows that she might get punished. Also knows that she could become a victim herself someday. If she helps Tom now, he might help her in the future. She is asking herself, what's in it for me? At stage 3, interpersonal accord and conformity guide our moral judgment. Betty sees the fight and wants to intervene, but when she realizes that all the others are just watching, she decides not to get involved. She wants others to see that she is a good girl who is conforming with the ethics of the community. She asks herself, what do others think of me? At stage 4, we value authority and want to maintain social order. When the teacher sees the group fighting, he immediately steps in and shouts, "Stop! Fighting at school is forbidden." He feels that, above all, it is important to follow the rules, otherwise chaos breaks out. He feels it is his duty to uphold the rules that sustain a functioning society. He asks himself, how can I maintain law and order? At stage 5, we understand rules as a social contract, as opposed to a strict order. Jessie, who watches from afar, is not sure how she feels about this. To her, rules make sense only if they serve the right purpose. Obviously, the school rules prohibit fighting, but maybe Tom deserves to finally learn his lesson. Just yesterday, he punched a young girl from grade 1. She asks herself, does a rule truly serve all members of the community? At stage 6, we are guided by universal ethical principles. All those involved now have to face the headmaster. He first explains the school rules and why they exist. He then clarifies that rules are valid only if they are grounded in justice. The commitment to justice carries with it an obligation to disobey unjust rules. The headmaster's highest moral principle is compassion. He believes that all people should learn to understand each other's viewpoints, and that they don't feel alone with their feelings. He asks, what are the abstract ethical principles that serve my understandings of justice? At the pre-conventional level, Finn is driven by fear and Mary by self-interest. Both judge what is right or wrong by the direct consequences they expect for themselves and not by social norms. This form of reasoning is common among children. At the conventional level, Betty responds to peer pressure, and the teacher follows the rules. Their morality is centered around what society regards as right. At this level, the fairness of rules is seldom questioned. It is common to think like this during adolescence and adulthood. At the post-conventional level, Jessie knows that things are complicated because individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own morality. The headmaster follows a universal ethical idea, at complete disconnect with what society thinks or the rules say. To him, everything is solved through compassion. The right behavior, in his opinion, is therefore never a means to an end, but always an end in itself. Not every person reaches this level. The American psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg based his work on Piaget's theory of cognitive development. In order to confirm his theory of stages of moral development, Kohlberg interviewed boys between the ages of 10 and 16. He analyzed how they would justify their decision when confronted with different hypothetical moral dilemmas. We will now present to you the most famous moral dilemma Kohlberg presented to his students. Let's see what you would do. The Heinz Dilemma. A woman was on her deathbed. There was only one drug that the doctors thought might save her. The druggist that made that particular medicine sold it for 10 times the price of the production costs. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, was poor and could not afford to buy the drug, not even with the financial help of his friends. Heinz then asked the pharmacist to sell it to him for half the price, but he refused. To save the life of his wife, Heinz broke into the man's laboratory and stole the medicine. Now tell us, should Heinz have stolen the drug? Would it change anything if Heinz didn't love his wife? What if the person dying was not his wife, but a stranger? Should the police arrest the druggist for murder if the wife had died? Please write your answers and their justifications in the comments below.
So, so that would be the end of a short video clip that I um, shared to you, class. So I hope you learned something about that one. Now let's go to the lesson proper. Going back to our presentation, so I'll be sharing to you again the slides that we have about this one. So here, based on the video clips, of course, it actually gave full details about Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Now let's proceed to the lesson proper. So let's talk about the pre-conventional moral development. So as you can see in the video, the moral this stage, we're in, it was actually considered as the first stage. So the people are, or the individual are actually focusing more on the punishment obedient orientation. So it's somewhat like what is actually the idea about having this one is ang influence coming from the parents, no, because knowing that sa ato ang pag siyempre going back, no, to the justification about the ano, verticality of the human development as well as the cognitive development, wherein the reasoning ability of the person actually can be found in the cognitive development also. So as the person started to develop in his way of cognition, so of course we can actually expect that his ability to understand about what is the rightness and the wrongness of an act will also go in parallel also. Now, when we are going to understand about punishment and obedience, murag og sa gagmay pa nga at an early stage class, of course we tend to focus more on what is actually being taught coming from our home sa atong mga ginikanan. Like for example, mahadlok ta makasala, it's because we already understand and we already have the knowledge that when we are going to commit mistake, there's always an accompany, no, nga punishment. So ang pinaka the best atong buhaton is kaning the very key, no, for us to be safe from punishment is to obey. So there, in the stage one level, so the person or the individual becomes motivated to actually follow. It's because there is the presence of that punishment. Now, sige tawag siya punishment obedience orientation. Now, also, diri no gitawag ni self-interest orientation and instrumental relativist, no, there is a, I'm sorry, this was actually the stage 2. So sa stage 2, you consider siya self-interest orientation or instrumental relativist orientation because the very key for this is kaning gitawag na to do thing for people, no, to gain also to gain benefits. What is actually playing this role is kaning gitawag na to self-interest, no. So katong inyo nakita dito, no, ang second nga the second person, no, who witness about sa katong fight, wala siya ni kuan, no, wala siya ni ditso dayon og laban because she's asking about herself, do I supposed to do this one, no, just because of that person. So para niya, no, iyang nakita no nga kana nga luoy kay ang tao so mo iyang gilabanan. So paglaban niya, what is the purpose nga iya man gilabanan ang tao? So ang gilabanan because she knows so well no nga ang kaning pagpakig-away is dili maayo. Unya when they let those person actually or continuously no performing this wrong act which is bullying, there might be possibility nga mahitabo po na sa iyaha. And also kita no we tend to be motivated with a particular act, especially diri sa stage 2, dili sa level 2 kasi level 1 siya pero stage 2. So sa stage 2 is ang diri no ang tao naka-focus of what is that thing or what is that particular choices that I have to go through no is this something that could actually give beneficial to myself or not, because dili no kay gitawag mo siya self interest, of course the people are actually becomes motivated no to do things for people also to gain benefits no coming from the word self interest no, if that is something that could actually gives benefit to you, then muna no atong buhaton mo siyang gitawag siya instrumental relativist orientation, because we want also no we want also to gain something. We become we functionalize in the society. We tend to become muratag becomes proactive no in making or giving response. It's because that is something that could give us benefits also. Now what about in level 2, which is the conventional moral development? So dire ano atong himay-himayon dire you can see the picture. So punishment obedience orientation. So there you can see the how the parents actually at the picture punish his child. So that becomes the motivation. No, the stage 2. In this stage, a good action is seen as one that is in the best interest of the individual. So they tend to do such act because that is coming from the interest of the individual. That's the best interest for them. That's something that would give beneficial on their part. Favors may be done for another child so that in return, favors will be returned by the other. So, murag nahugan ni siya kwas ug siya binisaya pa na siya ato nang gibuhat no in order nga masuklian pod ang atuang nga ginabuhat. So like for example, it is more on mubuhat tag maayo no in order para nga ang outcome pod niri sa tua maayo pod. So atong tagdo ang atong isig ka tawo ug tinarong kay para ang masukli sad sa tawo sa tua tinarong pod. Okay? So what about level 2 conventional morality, adolescence, young adulthood? So dire good boy or good girl orientation. So individuals at this stage of moral reasoning will try to win the approval of others so that their identity is perceived as good. So yeah, no? The acceptance of the individual by the peer group has a huge impact in terms of what actions are considered good or bad. So dire ang atong giapas dire is kaning gitawag na lang social approval, no? We love to we really urge to show love and empathy towards other people, uh, also having good intentions towards other people no kay para nga uh, they can view us as a good boy or a good girl no, they can actually find us as a good boy and a good girl because mo na no ang atong giapas dira is social approval man no, the people will surely find you a good boy or a good girl if you're also doing good. Okay, so diri siya uh, take note no ang idea dire no, it is coming from the people no, that pressures towards the ability to perform a moral act is actually being demanded coming from the people. Okay, so next we're going to proceed with stage 4. I'm sorry, uh the good boy and the good girl. We have the stage 4, sorry, the law and order orientation. People at this stage of moral reasoning have moved beyond the strong need for individual approval, no, associated with stage 3. So this is associated with stage 3 in the way that, of course, the people becomes motivated or the person becomes motivated to do something good because that could inevitably, no, nagit siya impact towards how the people actually viewed you as a person. And it has something to do with the dignity of that individual. So kung like if you're not putting considerations, if you're not putting importance also on how the people actually may react to the particular act that you have possessed, ay mong gipakita, na possibility na siya no nga ang panlantaw sa imong sa mga taon mo mausab. Now in relation diri sa law and order orientation, of course there must be a law or there must be a rule that has to be exercised in the society, or else chaos will arise, no? So we cannot imagine dili gitawag dili law and order orientation because the law has to be exercised in order to maintain a functioning society. So without the law and order orientation, maglisod yun, no? Like for example, di bito sa tuang nga tuang society, no? Na ay kwan bawal magtapon ng basura, bawal magsaba-saba, no? Kay kanang especially kanang alas 10 na no, beyond 10, bawal na magsaba-saba. The reason why nganong ilan ang gibuhat ingon ana, it's because atong sabto no, the law has its purpose also. The law does not, I believe, no, the law does not actually serve only for a minority of the people, but the majority of the people. And uh, just like what I said a while ago, of course, there must be a rule that would be or that is a must to be implied in the society in order to create a very functioning society. Functioning, harmonious, peaceful. Okay, we cannot imagine society that is very chaotic. Okay. Next, we have the level three, which is the post-conventional morality, or this stage, of course, significantly, rin na siya mo kuhan sa adulthood, no? So, we have this social contract, no? Legalistic orientation. Dire, what is this? At this stage, it is recognized that individuals can hold different opinions and values, and this should be respected impartially. Ganun gitawag mo siya, this should be respected impartially. No single choice is seen as right of or absolute since others do not have the moral authority to judge the actions of the individual. So, dire, no? Atong sabton og balik, kani siya no gitawag siya no ang opinions and values and should be respected impartially nganong gitawag mo siya respected impartially. We can never say that the particular act of a person is wrong, no, by means of our own view, no, na may uban nga kana nga they tend to actually judge on how the people actually or how the person actually make responses to that particular problem or make choices of that um particular situation. But we can never say that 100% that is valid because that is only coming from we tawag siya subjective class, no, subjective opinion, because the man of opinion sa matagtag sa tagsa. Now but one thing is for sure, natawag siya social contract because this particular legalistic orientation, we have to understand that the law is not only serving for a purpose of a single person, but the law, the individual is encouraged to actually join with or abide with what is kanabang act, what is an act that is acceptable to the society, acceptable to the numerous number of people, no? So nadia no ang pagpakig gitaw siya social contract pag ang ato ang pagpakig sabot sa mga tao, no, ang atong pagpakigsabot niya kanang representation sa pagpakigsabot mga tao, because let us not understand that one literally. Ang pagpakigsabot sa mga tao is to abide with the law, no, we have to abide to the law, not to question the law, because the law is actually serves not only for a single person but it serves the majority of the people, and we have to understand that one, no, na sige tawag siya uh, through abiding the social contract, of course, it could actually give or provide benefit to the society. Usahay, like for example, if that particular choices of hawak ang kwarta, when someone is actually being asked, especially relating to a matter like ako lang yung i-relate plus no I hope you can also this could somehow help you. Isko Moreno is actually being asked about his opinion towards the Marcos, no, the ill-gotten wealth of the Marcos. Now, Isko Moreno actually justifies and says nothing at all about that one because he said that undergo naman siya no og daghan kaayong kanang ano na undergo na siya og daghan na kaso niya until now that was not resolved by means of the legality by means of no until now ongoing paghapon ang mga questions about ani ana inviting always the Marcos family to adhere and to follow no kung whatever will be the kanibang the process of investigation so he cannot actually judge and totally tag the person as criminal or kawatan ano no on the other side also na po gipungutan na po si Isko Moreno what is your opinion about kana ron no nga dako kay budget sa kanang ilang President Duterte sa DOH dako kay budget nga pagpalit ang mga mask. Now, he said to an opinion, no, saying that the money should not be spent that way. No, it should not to be spent in that way because dapat unta kuno ang tuunan og pansin is kaning pagpalit og mga tambal, pagpalit og mga kuan, paghatag og mga yuda instead of buying those mahal kay tanan nga mga face mask and face shields. So he do not say anything about pointing out that the person is actually already a criminal because he respect arisa mo fall sa gitawag og social contract. There is the process of law. So no one is actually can abridge. No one is actually pwede ka mudlukso, no? You can skip immediately to the process of law uh, without investigation. That is the reason why namin tawag no, there's always a due process of law. Mao na lang even though ang tao nakapatay, not unless he will not be proven guilty coming from the court, uh, coming from that balaod which is actually being established by uh, the people, the law legislator. So dili patakakuan sa tao no? We cannot judge the person only the person's judgment is subjective no natawag subjective because every individual has its own opinion and has its own view about a particular nga choices, a particular nga act. But what is very certain about so, balikon, the law does not serve only for a single person, but it serves to the majority of the people. Now, let's proceed to the last stage, which is stage 6, universal ethical principle orientation. So moral reasoning is based on abstract reasoning at this stage. Conscience is seen as an important factor in making moral decisions. Mutual respect is valued as a universal principle. Laws are seen as valid only insofar as they promote the principle of justice. Therefore, there is an obligation on people to disobey and adjust law. So decisions are met categorically and in an absolute way rather than with conditions attached. So this stage no actually requires this what we call the objective and universality of the law of the justice no for everyone and for all no anong gitawag man siya og universal ethical principle orientation coming from the stage 5 in reflection to stage 5 of course dili man tanan nga balaod no nga like we believe that the law is always that the law which is actually established and implemented to the society serves the majority of people now mo to no atong sabton what about those katong uban no mga maargabyado sa balaod uh, it's not about the violators of the law but usahay no atong makita no nga at some point in our life pareha sa Heinz dilemma he becomes a victim of circumstances no nga pobre lang gid siya he cannot be able to afford he have done all of his best to actually convince atong physician but unfortunately given he was not given those medicine no, para sa iyahang asawa in order to cure, no, his wife. Now ato siyang lantawo, no, sa tawhanon nga prinsipyo, of course ato lantawon ang gibuhat sa physician dili man pud kaayo, no, makiangayo no nga kana nga imo hikawan ang tao nga mabuhi just because coming from you nga dapat bayaran lang tambal because that is coming from your own expertise that the medicine was actually created. Kung atong tan-awon sa balaod, sayop man ang mangawat, sayop man imong tulisod ang tao, kwaon nimo sa pinugos. But you cannot deny the fact that you're running with your conscience. You're running with your desire, no, to save life. Especially that particular person nga imong i-save ang life is something very important to you. So mo na nga, he was actually in the process of kinibang pagpakigbisog aning iyang dilemma, no? Ang iyang dilemma about sa iyang choices. Now, kaning universal ethical principle, though there are the presence of law, an individual has their own view also kaning gitawag na to will sa usa ka tawo. Ang kaning will sa usa ka tawo that actually uh, makes the person understand somehow to wait wherein this particular law nga establish is serving also the right of the minority of the people or not. So if that particular right is makaagabyado siya sa katungod sa mga tao, no, nga gamay, like for example pareha ni Heinz nga walay walay kwarta, walay kuan, so he's running with a conscience, no. So this becomes very important and seldom the person can actually reach this stage kay kuan mo ni class prinsipyo, no. So ang prinsipyo sa usa ka tawo mo to nga matawag nito siya, no, dito sa circumstances gikuha niya, no, gikawat ni Heinz ang tambal, no, despite the fact that he know already nga pagpangawat sayop, despite the fact that he might be rejected by the people kay or he will be judged by the people as kawatan, kriminal. For him it doesn't really matter because what matters most is for him that he was already there, no, he was already committed to kana, no, ang iyang tambalan ng iyang asawa. Now, doesn't really matter if he will be put in jail, no? So para niya, yung barugan yung prinsipyo nga, I serves the majority but not all the people. So mo na nakabati sa balaod nga usahay the people will tend to go against the law because depende man na, no? We can never say that Heinz is wrong because sa iyang situation we are going to analyze lisod man jud kayo to choose, but what is actually something that wins his heart to be able, no, to follow kung unsay naa sa iyang konsensya o naa sa iyang will is ang iyang gitagag kabug-aton ang iyang pag-save sa iyang wife. So mo na nga gitawag sa universal ethical principle because this matters on how the person actually perceive the presence of the law, the presence of that particular norms, the presence of that particular rule. Nga wherein imo siya timbangon mo siya to make it balance. Di ba? Okay, how are you going to say, no, nga ang balaod is always kanibang ang balaod is always balance, no, nga usahay circumstantially like for example kanang pagkawalay kwarta dili man na sala, no, kanang kaning nga tawo ta nga pobre di man na nato sala, no, but sala ang tao kung pobre ka pagkataon mo pobre ka hantun lang jud mamatay nga pobre ka mahug na siyang murag napo kay tulubagon sim kaugalingon na because you do not do something for you to improve. Now, og circumstantially yun, you will be kuan ka na ningana ka, no. Wala kay kwarta, wala kay kuan. So, of course, when someone actually refuse to give you a helping hand, no, to somehow makaluwas ka sa imong dilemma, imong problem, o di mo na sud ayo usahay muhug ug sa bisaya pa kapit patalin. Now, that's how, no, the universal principle is actually being followed by the individual. No? Despite the fact that there's the presence of the law, the person becomes kuwan gid siya, no? He will try his best to violate that particular law because anyway that does not serve his purpose as a person. No, wala man gitagahan siya pabor as a person. Nakapabor man siya sa ayaw pagpangawat o ayaw pagpatay. Naman dito nakapabor, wala man siya napaboran sa kuan nga despite the fact nga ang tao wala fully kabayad, just give him no a chance to get the medicine and then later on pwede man ano siya singgod and use against him. He will refuse to pay the kuan kanang katong balance. Okay? So I hope you learned something no with our discussion. So I think stage of moral development. I hope you learned something. Thank you so much and have a great evening everyone.